Hi, friends. This is Matthew Sewell, and you're listening to episode 111 of the Popecast, a history of the papacy, the only podcast about popes where you'll find non-boring stories on the successors of St. Peter and a reminder that all the world's problems have happened plenty of times before. Well, our favorite fellow papal history buff is back with us this week for the third time, Father Richard Kunst from the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota. He's here to talk about getting to recently meet Pope Leo XIV, his huge upcoming exhibit at the Mall of America in Minneapolis, outside Minneapolis, technically, and some other little tidbits you won't want to miss about traveling to and traveling around Rome. So stay tuned for that. A quick note before we get into it. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to click subscribe to the Popecast channel and leave a comment after listening to let us know what you liked most about the episode. And also, while the Popecast is free to listen to, it does take time and effort to produce, and I have big plans where the show will be taken in the coming weeks and months. So if you feel called to monetarily support the work we do here at the Popecast and Today in Papal History, our newsletter over on Substack, you can do so over at popes.substack.com by becoming a paying subscriber for as little as $6 a month or $60 a year, or if you feel so inclined, you can join the even more elite rank of pontifical superfans, our founders tier, which also gets you some additional swag that's not available to anyone else. So again, even one last thing, if you can think of one friend that you could share this with, I'd be eternally grateful, whatever the level. My family and I are incredibly grateful for your support. I'm so happy to be your guide on this journey through the winding roads of papal history. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Well, welcome back to the Popecast. Joining us again for the third time, I think, is Father Rich Kunst from the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota. He has been a priest of the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota for several decades, but he's more well-known, at least to me, and he should be for all of you, by now especially, for having the largest private collection of papal memorabilia outside of the Vatican. So we'll get more into that on the second half of the show, but first, Father Rich, welcome back. Thanks for being
Matt.
here.
It's good to be with you. I'm glad I'm on the this is my three-peat, because it's like with two papal junkies, it makes sense that we'd be on a few times together.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I appreciate the invite again. This was great.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, well, I think we could probably spend 10 or 12 episodes and still not be plumbing the depths of your varying papal knowledge, all the niche things that you've collected over the years. I'm endlessly fascinated by that, but to keep things on point, maybe for today, lest we ramble too much, or go too far afield. You were just in Rome, and you had the opportunity to meet Pope. I almost said Pope Leo the Great, but it was Pope Leo the Great II. Pope Leo the 14th.
His tomb. So I got close. Not So, but yeah, it was great. It was that he was like the way that 98% of people that ever get to meet the Pope get to. So it was at the end of a general audience, and so. And I will say this, so I've done that several times. I've met, he's now the fourth Pope I've met. Not too many people can say that. So I've met four popes. Yeah. And I will say that with each of the other popes, I've had the opportunity where I met him at the end of the audience, and John Paul more than that. But I'll say this, that Leo visited more people than any other Pope has that I've witnessed. There's probably, counting the bishops, 250 people that he met one-on-one.
Holy moly. And that's every Wednesday,
so, pretty
much.
So they call it the prima fila, like the front row tickets. And so I was shocked when I got there. It's like how many people were there for that. And so I realized right away, this is going to be a very, very quick visit. I'm not going to ask them to have a beer with me. It's just going to be a really quick. And sure enough, they're kind of pushing me along when it comes time for me to greet them. I regret now, because it was a total fail, but I brought a baseball hoping that he would sign it. And his handlers, the gentlemen of the papal household, as they saw me walking up when it was getting close to my turn with a pen and a baseball, they said, "Put the pen away. Put the pen away." So I put it in my pocket with the sense that I'm still going to ask them. They're not going to tell me I can't ask them. So when it was finally my chance, I I asked him, I said I was from Duluth, Minnesota, and I told him about the exhibit that we're going to be having at the Mall of America that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then I showed him the EWTN DVD about the collection, and then asked if he would please sign the baseball. And he just he said, no, I can't do that. And which I appreciate that because there's so many people there. It's like,
Oh,
I'm sure he didn't want to open a can of worms. However, I will say this, is that Francis did sign it.
Did he really? Oh, I remember. I saw. Yeah, I think I've seen a picture of that.
Yeah, so Francis did sign a baseball, but there's far fewer people that he was meeting with than what Leo was meeting with. So I actually do appreciate Leo's situation with that.
That's pretty funny. Do you think that has to do more with Pope Francis' age toward the end of his
because when I
papacy,
met
or
Francis,
just
in both cases, I met Francis. Well, wait a minute. Francis became Pope in 2013. So I met him on April 29th, 2015. So he was still pretty young.
Yeah,
so he's still relatively young. But for whatever reason, I'm sure it's up to the Pope that they limited how many people they were going to do this for. So for Francis, he just kind of like, we had the front row and there's this little barrier there, but he just walked along the front row and greeted each one of us. For Leo, we actually walked up onto the pavilion that he sits under after the, for the Wednesday audiences. So it was a little bit more, we didn't stay put. We were moved up to where he was. So it was a little bit different. And for when John Paul, because I met John Paul a few times that way, towards the end, it was that way as well. We walked up to the pavilion where Francis just kind of walked right by.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I remember the picture of you. It was in down on the cobblestones instead of up on the platform where
it was on the platform. It was on the same level.
With Pope Francis. Sorry, I meant with Pope Francis, not Pope Leo. Yeah. What was it like talking to the Pope in English, in American English?
Well, it was, so, okay. So like I said, I've met the other popes and John Paul is pretty fluent, but he didn't sound like me, so it's like, there's a certain, I think that some of the mystique is gone, I mean, it's like, I'm talking to guys from Chicago, so it's like, we didn't have a lot of interactions, very brief, but I didn't try and make my language simple for him to understand. I just talked like what we're talking. And that I've never done, even with John Paul II, I never did that. I tried to simplify how I was talking. And so it's pretty cool. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it yet. It's like, I like the mystique of the papacy. And so the idea of the guy being from Chicago is like pretty cool. But I don't know. Yeah, what do you think of an American Pope?
I think that's largely where I fall too, because thinking back to one of his first addresses, and it was it might have been a bunch of Americans, or just a bunch of English speaking pilgrims right after he got elected, and here he is speaking in American English. And he's wearing white, and it's like my brain was just kind of short circuiting a little bit, because I mean, it was Latin for a million years is what they spoke, and then it was Italian, and then Pope Francis would kind of go back and forth between Italian and Spanish, and but then and then like I think of, like you said, spoke English but don't sound like me, like Pope Francis at the UN, and it was pretty rough to listen to him. But it was cool that he was speaking in our language, and then here's Bob from Chicago, as people have said.
From Chicago. Exactly. Somebody gave me a priest who was got an acquaintance with the Augustinians, gave me Bob Prevost's email address right after he was elected. He said, "Here, this is Bob's email. If you want to try to give a shot and send him an email." I've never done that. That. Maybe he checks them from time to time. I don't know.
Maybe he still plays. Yeah, he still plays Words with Friends with his brother, apparently.
Does he really?
And I think a couple of interviews, more recent ones even too, the younger brother, the one who he seemed to be closest with, they play Words with Friends, and he'll still call him. And I think it was the Bishop Kukanis from Tucson happened to have his phone number and texted him and got a text back within the first week or two.
Isn't that crazy?
Just wild.
I should check that email out sometime. But you should get one of the Pope's brothers on the Popecast.
That'd be pretty crazy.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, crazier things would happen. They're on Facebook. I think I've had them in my suggested friends or likes or something. But
oh, really?
I think from the sound of it, not to paint with too broad a brush, but I feel like which one you interviewed, it could go vastly different directions. But
I agree.
Yeah, but still, I was fascinated by, because I'm living the life of of being the father to 3 sons. And so I know what life with 3 brothers close in age is like. And so
Yeah.
it's just endlessly fast because I forget, was he the middle or was he the youngest?
Middle, I think. I think he's the middle.
The middle,
I
that's
think
right,
he is.
yeah. But just the different dynamics between brothers and the things that toddler boys do to each other and say
Yeah.
to each other, and to think of the Pope having done that is
So
just kind of endlessly
we've
funny.
tried to, I mean, I've tried, I don't know how to, I mean, I'm not on Facebook, so I haven't tried to find them on Facebook, but I've tried to reach out to, 'cause I wouldn't mind getting one of them for my exhibit that's coming up at the Mall of America in
Oh,
January.
sure. Well, and
That
if
would
they're in
be
Chicago, one's in Florida, one's in Chicago, I think, right? It
correct.
sounded like
Yep. Yeah.
not that big of a jaunt.
Right.
That would be a hoot.
That would be great.
I imagine they've been inundated, more than
I
inundated.
can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. It's like, that's why I haven't really tried yet. Cause like, but at the same time, it's like, I've got a pretty unique event. And I told the Holy Father, I said in my request to get the space ball, I said, Your Holiness, we're having an exhibit at the Mall of America in the honor of your election as the first American Pope. And I'd like something at the exhibit with you in it because it's in your honor.
Mhm.
Can't do it. Can't
Ah,
sign. Can't sign the baseball. So,
one of
and some
those,
others,
yeah,
sometime down the
yeah.
line.
So were you the only one from your group who was there? Was that something where your whole group got to meet him?
No, no, they would have loved that. But my mentor priest is a Archbishop Schnurr of Cincinnati. He's now
Oh, right.
emeritus. He's now retired, and it just so happened that Archbishop Schnurr's in that same audience, and so I talked to Schnurr back in the summertime. I said, "Would you write a letter for me? That I might be able to get the prima fila." And so uh, I drafted the letter and then sent it to him, and then he sent it off in September. And then it just said, you will be getting it. You can come and get the ticket at the Browns doors, but it didn't tell me what the ticket was. So I
Mhm.
didn't know until the night before. So I went there and waited this line for like an hour and a half. And just in the off chance that it would be one that I could meet him, and it was. And so not
Wow.
until they hand you the envelope, you open the envelope, you don't know what kind of ticket you got.
Mhm.
I wish I had it here. I mean, I could send you a picture. I don't have it with me. I could send you a picture of it maybe. What the
At least
what
that mystique is still there. It's still, even though there's an American Pope from Chicago, the Rome is still Rome. Vatican the Vatican's still the
oh,
Vatican.
Absolutely. So do you want me to, I mean, I'm multitasking now. I could probably send you a picture of what the ticket looks like.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the bronze doors of St. Peter. Well, because when I was there, you had to go to the English or at the North American College
It depends on how you get
to
the
get
ticket.
the right.
So, I mean, if you go through like the North American College, then you have to go to Casa Santa Marta where the priests are studying, American priests are studying, and get the ticket the day before. I went through the
Right.
papal household. And so if you go through the papal household, then you go through the brown stores to get your ticket
Mhm.
the,
Mhm.
the night before.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So my
So
group,
had
I had a group of 8 people, and I had to arrange because I couldn't do both at the same time because they were open at the same time. But I arranged with our seminarians to go get the tickets for my group. That was just the
mhm.
general audience, and then I waited in line for the special ticket.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So how long were you in Rome? About a week?
8 or 9 days.
The trips are usually about that long.
Yeah.
So what are other some of the I don't remember what all we've covered in the last 2 times you've been on, but what are some of the other kind of highlights that you always look forward to as somebody who's seen this a million times in
Well,
Rome
I
or
mean,
in the
this
Vatican?
year is the holier doors, of course, and so I've been there for it'll be well, I'm going again after Christmas, so it'll be the 4th time this year, and so going through the holier doors is pretty cool. Obviously, that's an understatement. But I don't know. I mean, I there's always so many parts I really really like, and so I would say that the one that sticks out in my mind at the moment right now is Paul Outside the Walls.
Hmm.
Even though I've gone there 500 times, it's like it's kind of like out there by itself, so you really have to make a concerted effort to get there. And so that's one that it kind of sticks out in my mind at the moment. Although St. Peter's is the best by
Hmm.
far. I mean,
Yeah.
well,
There's
that's what I'd say. But I mean, it's
yeah.
just great to walk around and hit, like even okay, even Matt, even this time. So I literally have been to Rome like 150 times. I don't know more than that even,
Hmm.
and I literally came across a church I've never been in this time.
Oh,
It's like, and
really?
like, I got my certain routes that I walk by, and I don't really stray from the routes too much, and And I don't know why, but we walked a different route with this group, and I was looking at this church. I've never been in that church before, and I walked in. It's like, it's incredible. It's incredibly beautiful. It's like, I've never been in that church. It's like,
Wow.
I don't even know the name of it. I took a picture of
I was gonna say, do you remember what it was, or
souvenir book,
where it was?
and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a block away from where I normally walk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's
100,
Rome. That's why Rome is so great. It's like, you can
mm-hmm.
never exhaust it.
Right. 150 times and to still find someplace new. I mean, I felt like that, and I was there for 8 days last year, because on the last day I was looking for an antique store, because I think I had been talking to you about
Maybe,
where
yeah.
to look for,
Yeah.
hidden diamond in the rough papal memorabilia or whatever, and I went to a part of town that I was sort of familiar with already, but went down a street that I didn't realize I hadn't gone down, and found a church, and it happened to be, I was looking for confession actually too, and I found an American order who took care of this church, a little off the beaten path, and it happened to be the church where Pius XII was baptized. You get done doing confession, turn around, and there's the baptismal font where he was baptized at.
Was that Santa Susanna? In church at her, I think.
No, anyway. It was the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest did their masses there, the Latin Mass order.
Oh.
And it was Celso Agordo or something like that. That's something, I don't know. But it was,
God, you think I would know that sort of thing? But there's just
but it was so unassuming, because I mean, you go at the wrong time, church doors are closed. You're like, is that a dilapidated church? And then they open the doors, and it's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. It was kind of one of those sorts of things, little tiny, but
those churches are a dime a dozen. So what I like to do, so I mean, I got this down to a science, my little tours that I do, and so I'll bring it for the first day, like when jet lag is still very present. We won't really do any touring, but we'll walk around, get the lay of the land, and I'll bring them. There's always this one church I always bring them to right off of the Via Concilione from St. Peter's. It's on the left-hand side. The Carmelites run it. I can't remember the name of it, but I bring them in there. I say, this is the first church. And I tell them, by Rome standards, this is small and boring. Like, they're like, what? You kidding me? Like, this is small and boring? It's like, yes. And at the end of the trip, you're going to agree with me. So it's like, I just like to do stuff like that. So I really got this thing down to a science on how I lead these tours, and how I kind of bait the people along with the tour. So
that's really funny. I'm interested to know, what the progression is. But you saying that reminds me of my good friend who was my tour guide when I went there. He was studying canon law, Father Ned Scheidecker from the Diocese of Helena. Shout out. Now a canon lawyer. We went into Santa Maria Araceli by the Angelicum, I think. And there was a statue of Gregory the 13th there. I'm like, my first Pope statue. Here, take a picture of me next to it.
Yeah.
And we stood there for like 5 minutes, and he said, you got to understand, you're not going to be able to do this in every church, because you're going to find a million of these.
Exactly. I don't go to Vatican. I don't go to any museum in Rome. Why? Okay,
Right.
The Sistine Chapel, I appreciate that. I can understand that. But every church is a museum. I mean,
you never know what you're going to find.
They're like Raphael, Michelangelo, a lot of their art is in these churches, and so it's.
Well, there was, we think of Raphael and Michelangelo, rightfully so. They were masters of the time. That they were masters of the Renaissance is saying something. But we live in a time where artists like that are one in a million. But Rome had 1,000 or more of those guys. So, like, I think of this cardinal's tomb. I don't remember which cardinal it was, but it had this giant skeleton that was like climbing out of the tomb, was part of the tomb, and it was incredible. But it was tucked in the back corner of some church. I don't even remember what it was. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
This is the way I like to put this. I put that from the faith perspective side of things, because, like, as you just stated, no artists are quite like the Renaissance. There's not another Michelangelo. There's not another Raphael. There's not another Bernini. I mean, you look at the greatest modern artists today, they aren't a dimple on the butt of those guys. And yet those guys all coincide with the period of time in which the church puts the most amount of its resources into art.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's not by design? Of course it's by design. God allowed the greatest artists that blow anybody out of the water today to live in a period of time where the church put in so much of its resources towards their talent and their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like we can't replicate that. there will never be a time that, we can't predict another time that'd ever be like that again.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so Rome is a shrine to that. I mean, it's a shrine. And those are the ones that like you said, those are the ones that everybody knows these names, but there's a tons of other artists like that were amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's always it's such a bummer to hear people say, "Oh, Rome's so extravagant. Why don't they just donate it to the poor or something like that?" That they completely miss the point of the grandeur of the gift that beauty is, and like that belongs to the poor, just like it belongs to you and I, or just like
That's right.
is technically owned by the Vatican, but whatever, it's not
Well,
owned by anyone. It's a
yeah. So not the last trip, but the trip before that, I have a guy who is totally unchurched, went on my tour, and now he's in OCIA. So,
no kidding.
you go and you experience Rome and you see this beauty and all this resources spent for the glory of God. It can't help but affect you in ways. And so the idea of this beauty is not there because it's extravagant and the church, should sell it. That beauty, all dedicated to the glory and love of God and faith, should necessarily move generations to be better Christians. So the art is to move us to be closer to God, to love God, to want to pray. You go in some of those churches, you just want to get on your knees. It's like it moves you to pray. And then that
Right.
moves you to be a better person so that you can go out and feed the poor. So it's like that is out there. Rome is to inspire us to be other Christs. Does it inspire everybody? No, it doesn't. But it inspires countless people to be better Christians. And if the church sold what it had, well, that inspiration would go away.
Yeah.
So,
That's beautifully said. Well, before we get to the exhibition, I just had a thought, because having been to Rome so many times, down to the dollars and cents and the right flights to take and all these sorts of things. But my trip was the very first time that I'd ever gone. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't have gone had my wife not insisted. She is a saint. She had just had a baby. She was about to have a baby.
yeah.
And by the time I went, it was
is this a reveal?
No. Yeah. Well, everybody else will know by the time this comes out, I guess, technically, so we could. But we did just find out that we're having a fourth boy. So
Congratulations.
So thank you. God is good. So we'll complete the set, so to speak, of the greats.
The greats.
With the last name. But no, the when our third was born, it was a quick story. I was at back home where I grew up in Montana. Retired priest who lived next door to us had died. So the bishop was there. My friend Father Ned was there. A couple other guys I went to college with who are now priests were there. And Bishop Vetter from Helena, who I had not met yet, comes up to me and says, because he had met my mom and so knew that I was roommates with Father Ned in college, comes up and says, "So when are you going to Rome to visit Father Ned?" And I kind of looked at him. I said, "First of all, nice to meet you. This is weird. I feel awkward or something." And I thought, I didn't say this. I said, "Are you nuts?" I thought, "Are you nuts? I have soon to be 3 little kids. I'm not going to Rome anytime soon. That's insane." Because also in my head, this is the point that I'm trying to drive at. I wasn't even thinking about how cool it would be to go have Father Ned show me around Rome because he's living there. I'm thinking it's too hard to get to Rome. It's too expensive, without even looking into the numbers. But in reality, I started looking and finding out that, convents rent rooms to pilgrims that are bare bones, $30-$40 a night, with a better continental breakfast than the Holiday Inn Express, by the way. My flight, if I had booked it a week earlier than I actually ended up doing, was $500 round trip from Spokane to Rome and back.
You can do it right.
Cheap. Yeah, and right. And like I got a bunch of souvenirs and stuff, so I still spent a fair bit there. But even the food, I feel like, was not unreasonable to go out and get a bowl of pasta that was more incredible than anything I've had here. So what I'm hoping you could do is maybe just talk a little bit about, in your experience, how actually reasonable, or maybe more reasonable than a person might think.
Again,
to make it to Rome,
especially if you're flexible, then not a lot of people are flexible. But if you are flexible, you can find those tickets that are really cheap. Some people are really good at finding cheap flights. Do that. That's one big thing. And then, as you said, some of these convents have special deals. But there are so many places to stay in Rome. And I've always stayed in the same, I shouldn't say always, but I've stayed in the same place maybe 100 times. And it's a bed and breakfast. And so don't go to a hotel. If you go to Rome, don't stay in a hotel. they are super expensive. They're not that
Mhm.
great. And so stay at a B&B, Airbnb, or
Mhm.
these pensiones or something, what they call them, these convents. Uh, but the B&B that I stay at, I mean, it's true breakfast. You get a breakfast with it, and it's inexpensive. It's just a great location. They clean the rooms all the time, and so it's a diamond that I've found. And so and that's not that expensive. And so and then you can eat as expensive as you want. I mean, you can, just like anywhere else, you can be really inexpensive about how you eat. There's grocery stores that are super cheap, so it's like you can get through Rome on a very inexpensive level. And for when I bring my groups, like, I mean, we're not like poppers, but I tell them that it's not going to be overly expensive, and they cover my costs. So if I got 7 or 8 people, they all
Mhm.
pitch in to cover my costs. It's not that much money. And so Rome
Mhm.
done right can be very inexpensive. You just have to, you know,
Yeah.
put a little work into it, a little research.
Mhm. I also did find, and you can maybe affirm this or not, but it seems like dining with seminarians or priests, depending on where you go, a lot of
Yeah,
times they'll give you the priest rate or something at certain restaurants. I started to notice,
I
I'm like,
think
this
I
should be
think
more
maybe
expensive than that when
maybe
I
what
was,
you're probably alluding to, because there's a
paying
lot of
for.
priests there, so I don't know how many priest rates there are, but I would say that that if guys like for well, let me use the example of seminarians. Or seminarians, the North American college guys, they generally have like 2 or 3 restaurants they all like to go to. So it's like, and that changes over the years. Like every
Mhm.
few years, it's like a different restaurant, it seems. But those restaurants are very good to those seminarians because they know it's a big bread and butter for them. And so that might
Mhm.
be what you're referencing.
Right. It might have been, yeah. And I forget which one it was, but it was, yeah, two seminarians from
The
Helena.
idea, the important thing is that if you go over to Rome, do not, if you're talking, if it's a financial thing, do not go to a restaurant anywhere within eye shot of something famous. Because everything that's within eye shot of a landmark is going to have higher prices.
Yeah, that's good. I also noticed tipping culture isn't real big. That was also the same thing. You'd see waiters asking for tips in more high traffic areas that a lot of
Yeah,
Americans were used to being tipped. But then friends who I was with who were there a lot, they said
yeah.
it's not
The
really a
the
big thing
American
here.
used to be like early on when I first started going there, it was considered, well, back then it was a lira, but the equivalent of like $1 a tip per person. But now, if you go to any place that's like
Mhm.
where there's going to be a lot of Americans, the wait staff expect you to tip as the Americans do. So Americans have kind of
Mhm.
ruined that for
Yeah,
other Americans, not
interesting.
knowing any better. And then, of course,
Yeah,
as a
dumb
regular, I go
Americans.
back to my regular places. So it's like I go to restaurants, Matt, to where I don't even have to order. That's how often I'm in Rome. It's like these waiters know who I am and they know what I like.
Excellent. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing about that. I know we got limited time left. So, last thing we wanted to talk about is we've alluded to it a couple times. Vatican unveiled the biggest exhibition you've done to date, right? It's in the Mall of America, coming up early next year. So maybe just talk a little bit about that and where people can find it. I'll link to it
Yeah.
in the show notes. But
It's Yep,
yeah,
at the
tell us
mall,
what it's all
we'll
about.
call, yes, it'll be the largest exhibition that we've done, primarily because of just the number of people that will be going there, and then the venue. We did in 22, we did it at the Duluth Entertainment Convention Center here in Duluth, Minnesota. That's not as well known as the Mall of America, of course, and it's not in a bigger. It's Mall of America is in a much bigger
Hmm.
population base, and so, yep, January 10th to February 1st, we'll be showing. It's the largest collection, actually, of papal artifacts in the world, publicly or privately, and probably have about a little bit better than a third of the collection on exhibit, but the most significant pieces for sure. And yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
the website that you're going to post there is going to be very helpful for people to reserve tickets. I will be there, not the whole time, but I'll be there at certain key times, and we're going to probably have evening events for when I'm there to maybe be a little bit more of an exclusive type of opportunity for people. But uh, it's actually it's the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis that is putting this on, and I'm basically working with the Archdiocese, and so it'll be a big event. It's gonna be bringing a lot more exposure to what we do than what I've ever had before, and my hope and my goal is to really have this catapult into a regular thing. ideally, what I'd love to do is have something like this happen
Mhm.
twice a year, 2 different locations a year, where the collection is out in
Oh,
some other
cool.
location in the country, for, educational purposes, evangelization, but then also from my standpoint, it's a fundraising component to Catholic education in my diocese, and so that's what I'm going for, and it's a huge draw. I mean, people are enamored by the history of the papacy. It's not just for us popaholics like you and I. It's well, really, like it was a
Right.
number of years ago, probably about 15, 20 years ago now, that the Minnesota State Historical Society put on an exhibit of the Vatican splendors. And to this date, it's by far their biggest attendance that they've ever gotten. And so people are drawn to this. People are drawn to this sort
Wow.
of thing. And so Catholic or non-Catholic. And so we fully expect this to be a massive show for us.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, yeah, I know I mentioned before we started recording, but I'm really hoping to get out there. Maybe it could be our first ever live Popecast
That'd be cool.
recording if we can find time for that. But either way, I mean, I've just seen little snippets here and there from your post on the papalartifacts.com website. So to see a lot of that stuff
Yeah,
in
and
person would be
well, yeah, I
incredible.
mean, as far as the collection, but even the promos from the Archdiocese, like the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, I know are promoting it here and there. And we've gotten some, basic news coverage as well from the secular news in the area. We haven't done a big plug yet. I think that'll be coming up as we approach it a little bit more, but the buzz is certainly out there. I live in
Hmm.
Duluth, which is 2.5 miles north, 2.5 hours north of the Twin Cities. So I don't hear much about it up here. I feel like I'm
Oh, okay.
a little bit of a pocket up here where I don't get it, but I know it's gotten to be pretty big in the archdiocese. There's a lot of anticipation for it.
Yeah. Well, exciting. Yeah. Well, thanks for kind of priming the pump on that. I'll make sure to continue promoting that as much as I can, telling people that I know about. Minneapolis is such an easy place to get to from any place in the country. So I mean, it's a one flight to get there to go to the Mall of America. So yeah, January
Yeah.
10th to February 1st.
Yep. Yep. It'll be the hours of the mall, and the thing is that the proximity of the Mall of America to the airport is very, very close. I mean, when you fly out of the Twin
Okay.
Cities, depending on which direction you're going, you're gonna very quickly see the Mall of America from where your plane takes off. So the proximity is very close. That makes it
Mhm.
even easier. And so it's in Bloomington, Minnesota, is where the mall is, and even Bloomington. Visit Bloomington, which is their tourist organization in the city, has been promoting it in some of the other cities that come to the Mall of America often. So it's being promoted fairly well.
Mhm. Yeah, exciting. Well, yeah, I for one am really looking forward to it. I know you have to run, so thanks again for joining us for the third time. It's been great to catch up again. Anything else you want to add before we sign
Yeah,
off?
I'm trying to think what would be. I was just looking at some of the things that maybe are more recent that might be more exciting. Chalice used by Pope Pius XII, um, uh, a fairly large lock of hair of John Paul II, uh, some homework of Pius XII when he was a high schooler, and his white Pius XII also, in World War II, Pius XII did not heat the papal apartments for the sake of the war,
Wow.
and so he had an extra layer of white coat, and so that will be
Hmm.
on display as well. Um,
Wow.
Let me see, Bishop Wojtyła's ordination card from when he was ordained a bishop, um, and other things as well. So a
Wow.
whole bunch of other
All
things.
right.
So there's a lot of cool things that you'll see that you don't even see on my website, which is
Hmm.
papalartifacts.com.
All right. Yeah. There you go. There's the tag. So stuff that you would think would exist, and then also a considerable amount of stuff that you would never know exist, but are
Well,
equally as cool.
well, and the other thing that I'll say is maybe to end with this is, like, if you have gone to the Vatican and you've gone to the Vatican Museum, the stuff you see at the Vatican Museum is not the stuff you're going to see here, because what you see at the Vatican Museum is art and maybe some really, really fancy things that the Pope own, like jewels and stuff like that. The stuff that we have to offer is things that the popes used on their day-to-day life. Like, it brings the human side out of who these guys are. And so that's what we have, and you will not see that anywhere in Rome. I mean, I not that I'm aware of any other. I don't know. There might be
Hmm.
some little side alcove where there's like a little, display case, but what we
Hmm.
have to offer is the human side, and that's what's going to be exciting.
Oh, yeah, incredible. Well, yeah, thanks again, Father Rich. Vatican Unveiled. Check the link in the description, and hopefully see you there.